Welcome to Nourishing Maine at Dragonfly Cove Farm.
I'm Mary Kate Rennie, and this is Marge Kilkelly.
And we today are going to be talking about Christmas favorites.
It's so fun. It's going to be a good time.
It is fun, and it is going to be a good time. And we both really thought about what are the things when we first think about Christmas and celebrating with family, what's the first food you think about? And in my case, it's a suet pudding that I made with my grandmother when I was probably not high enough to look over the counter. And I even have her handwritten recipe, which we've had to translate a bit because it's pretty faded. And I got that from my cousin's daughter, who still makes this pudding as I do.
And a little cryptic as well. Those older recipes, you have to kind of make stuff up as you go along. So we will.
And yours?
And I'm going to be making, or steering, I should say, the Finnan Haddie. So I make Finnan Haddie every Christmas for my family, and it is a tradition. It's a favorite for sure. And mine comes from my mother-in-law's cookbook. And we will go through it. It's a pretty simple recipe for how delicious it is. And we'll be doing both of those today.
Yeah. And both of these have just a really long history.
They do, yeah. And it really ties into the feasting of the holidays, the fun, the family of Nourishing Maine. So this is a really gorgeous time of year for your favorite food, and it's the first time I'm going to be making it with a friend, and so I'm excited to do that with Marge and all of you.
So I'm going to put you to work.
Okay.
And what we have, I've already measured out the ingredients that we need for the pudding. And when you say pudding, in the U.S. we think of like a chocolate pudding or a vanilla pudding. This is actually a steamed bread. It's more like a brown bread, but a sweet brown bread with an amazingly sweet sauce.
And this will be steamed, right?
And it's going to be steamed. And I was doing some research last night. Steamed puddings actually began in the 1400s, Christmas puddings. And they steamed them because people didn't have ovens.
Oh,
and
perfect
they
sense.
used suet because suet actually makes it lighter because the melting temperature of suet is higher than the melting temperature of butter. So,
and less expensive.
And less expensive.
For sure.
And stuff that you had.
Yes.
So this is the flour, baking powder, baking soda, and salt, and that can go in the pan.
Okay, so dry ingredients go in?
Dry ingredients go in.
Okay.
And while you're doing the dry ingredients, I am going to do what I did when I was 5 or 6 years old, which is to use this really wonderful, funky old meat grinder and grind dates and suet.
And what are the different spices that are in here?
There's ginger, cinnamon, cloves, and we're going to add the nutmeg separately because we want to be able to do the nutmeg with the old nutmeg scraper.
I love that.
And I'll even let you do that.
Oh, thank you.
While I'm grinding.
Okay.
And this was the job that I had. And you know, it's really funny. And it's really funny because it seems pretty easy to do right now. But when I was a kid, it was like,
that was serious work.
It was serious work.
I'm going to move that a little.
And I've already measured it, and it's a half a cup of dates. It's going to end up a half a cup of dates and a half a cup of suet.
And the other reason that is so easy to do is the same texture.
Yes.
Pretty much.
Yes.
So nuts or none of that is in this.
No. I will say that if you make a mistake and you buy dates that are not pitted dates,
there we go.
Please be careful of that. Because that would be bad.
Yeah.
That would be really bad. That would not make your grinder happy.
It'd be an easy mistake, though.
It would be an easy mistake. But I love using the grinder, and I mean, we use it for a few other things, but almost always it comes out for this recipe, which I must say is my son Bob's absolute favorite thing on the planet. And it must be a thing about Bob's, because my Uncle Robert, that we called Uncle Bob, who was like my favorite uncle ever, he would sit at the Christmas table and wait for the suet pudding. I mean, it was almost cartoonish.
I had never heard of it.
Yeah. Well, and when people would enter the family, they would go like, "You eat fat pudding," you know, and then they'd taste it and go like, "Oh my God, that's so good."
Yeah. So are there different blade sizes on this, or is there
There
just
are,
all?
and we're using one that's just going to do a mild grind. We're not
Good.
using one that would turn it into
Like
a
mince.
hamburger or something.
Okay, got it.
And like I said, I've already measured these, so it's a half a cup of each.
Great.
So you
So-
got that done. Now
yeah.
you can do the nutmeg.
Here we are. So both Marge and I prefer to grind whole nutmeg. They're beautiful for one thing, but it's easier to measure it. Will this capture it, or will it just fall in?
I'm just going to put, yeah.
Okay. And we're eyeballing it.
Yeah, we're
okay.
eyeballing it.
So it's,
You can never have too much nutmeg.
I know, it's so pretty. It's like a dusting.
It's like, and it smells good even when
know.
you're just doing it.
Except
Yeah,
that.
don't put that, yeah, no.
I'm putting that over here. And that's a pretty,
A little bit more.
More?
There's some more
All
right
right.
there.
Because they're usually pretty small measurements when it calls for nutmeg. And I also will be using nutmeg in the Finnan Haddie.
Yep, in your sauce.
In the bechamel sauce, yeah. It really gives it a depth that you can't get anywhere else.
So this is the trickiest part of the recipe. The recipe has wonderful ingredient list up until the point of milk. And it says milk enough to mix.
See,
I've never exactly been sure.
well, they're giving you the benefit of the doubt, even though we don't know.
So we put milk in and we stir it and and I like it to be, sort of soft but not terrible.
Like paste?
Yeah, so it needs
a little more. Got it.
For a while, I got really serious about this, and every year when I'd make it, I would measure, and then I would give the results, and it was like, no, it's
Nobody's
not working.
caring. As long as you make it and it's ready for Christmas, that's the
That's all that
benefit
matters.
of being the cook of that.
I think that looks good.
Do ya?
Yeah, stir a little more.
Yeah, that was a little spice pocket. Those aromatic spices.
Smells so good.
I know. The spices of Christmas can't be
Yes.
beat. And dates are such a perfect fruit to put
And
in
then we're
here.
going to add the dates and the suet.
So is there too many lumps in there?
No, I think that's fine.
Okay.
And the other thing that's funny about the recipe is that it tells you that you need to add the dates and that you need to add the dates, ground up. It doesn't ever tell you the suet gets ground up. So I guess you're just supposed to know that.
Or,
So sadly, I'm afraid somebody probably just put some lumps of suet in there.
or they didn't think to do it together, maybe. Like I would have thought to grate it separate and then add it together.
My
but
grandmother always did them together.
see?
And it was always cool just to watch it, Again, I'm back to 6 years old.
I know. And you haven't forgotten any of it.
I haven't. All right, now we're going to add the molasses,
Molasses.
which is what gives it that wonderful
So it's like an
dark
oatmeal
color.
texture.
Yeah, like
Okay.
yep.
How much molasses is that?
That is
You need a spoon for that?
quarter cup. You should be able to scrape it out with
I
that.
will. I'll do that.
My lovely little new spurtles.
Yeah, good.
They do work pretty well.
Yeah, I like it. Gets in the corners.
Yeah.
I think that's good.
All right.
Another
is when-
favorite, molasses.
I know. This is when the magic really happens because it gets nice and dark and it looks lovely.
And you did mention brown bread.
Yeah.
So this color, of course, is from the molasses, which brown bread also calls for.
Yep.
Very traditional, very seasonal. Yay.
And then it's steamed. So it's
Now,
not.
I've never steamed anything, especially in something as gorgeous as this.
So I have two steamers. This is the one we're going to use today. This is a pudding steamer. And then I also have this one, which that's a different kind that sort of looks like a Jell-O mold. My grandmother always did it in a 1 pound coffee tin. And
So where did this come from?
some antique store somewhere. And what I remember about buying it is walking in and going, "Oh, it's a pudding steamer!" And I think the guy gave us a bargain because nobody else had known what it was.
Score!
And he was so impressed that I knew what it was.
Yeah. And you've already dusted it with flour.
I've greased it and dusted it with
You
flour.
did grease it too.
Yeah.
Okay. Because it'll stick.
It will stick.
Okay.
Yes. And it can just all go right in the bottom. And it has to steam for an hour and a half. So that's why I thought we'd start this, and we'll let this steam on the back of the stove, and then we will cook the rest of dinner, which is the way we did it. We always made the pudding early in the morning and let it steam all day. Or, you know, for the hour and a half. It felt like all day. When you're 6 years old, Christmas Day felt like all day.
Or waiting feels like all day. And then the present opening and the actual dinner flies by.
Yes.
Because you've waited so long.
All right. And this clamps together.
I want to see.
So one leg goes down underneath. And that one goes
that
up.
one on the top.
Yep, one goes up and one goes down.
Jeez.
And so it's
That's
sealed
rugged.
in. Yeah, it is. And it's sealed into the can. And I'm going to put it in a pot that has boiling water in it, and we're going to time it for an hour and a half. Okay.
It's a perfect size pot for that.
It is. It is.
And just let it sit.
And let it sit.
All right.
All right.
Well, let's clear the deck and we can start.
Clear the deck and we'll start with fish.
You got it. I'll go grab it. So I wanted to bring the Finnan Haddie as you would get it if you bought it at a local fish market. I am lucky enough to have not one, but two fish markets equidistant from my house where I can buy Finnan Haddie, and I'm sure you can find it if you look for it. It comes frozen, or it's in the freezer section, and it's always wrapped in a saran like this. And we need to poach it first, because not only will it cook the fish a little bit, it'll pull out some of the salt and some of the smoky flavor, although that's what you want because Finnan Haddie is smoked haddock. It really mellows it out, and it is so delicious. But I wanted everyone to see what it looks like if you want to go and get it yourself. So I'm gonna. We've already started the fish on the stove, and we're gonna add this to it, and then we're gonna make the sauce that's gonna be mixed in with it right next to it. So let's bring this to the stove.
White cream sauce.
Yes. So I'm gonna add this. I need some. I'm gonna hand this to you, Marge.
Yep.
I'm gonna turn this. So these are being poached, as I said, and probably 10 minutes, not too high of a flame on each side. And that'll do the trick for pulling out some of the extra salt from a salted fish.
And I think I'll move my pudding to the back of the stove so that you have
The
a
space
front
to
burner
make
to
the
make your
sauce.
bechamel sauce.
You got it. And I'm done flipping. Believe it or not, I'm glad we have aprons on, Marge.
Yes.
And this can sit for another 10 or 15 while we're making the sauce. And if you want to
Okay.
move that over, I'll move mine.
Yep. Who would have thought that a 10-burner stove wouldn't be big enough? Just saying.
So if you want to help
Light
me.
the burner.
Yeah. So the white sauce we're going to start with, so I have 3 pounds of the haddock, and the proportions of milk, butter, and flour to make the white sauce depend on how much fish you're going to be using, right? So we have 3 pounds of fish, which is pretty easy to have 3 tablespoons of butter and then 3 tablespoons of flour. You whip that up, which I will show you, and then 3 cups of milk. And it'll come together really quickly. Get that melted. And you want to brown the flour with the butter. Don't add the milk right away because you can get that pasty, floury flavor in the white sauce if you don't give it a minute. Let that melt.
And when you said brown, you mean cook, right? I mean,
You're cooking the flour.
Yeah, you're cooking the flour.
You're cooking
You
it.
didn't really want it to get brown,
No.
probably. Okay.
Well, it does become because the butter does get a little brown,
Yep.
but it's not burnt.
But not
Good
yeah,
question.
not
Yeah. So when Marge and I discussed the Finnan Haddie, we were talking about, well, what do you poach your fish in? And Marge said, I use water. And I said, and I've always used milk, or if I don't have enough milk at home, I'll just cut it half and half with water and milk, because it's just a lighter fat version. So there's no, again, with these traditional recipes, probably for your pudding as well, there's all kinds of variations. And so it'd be interesting, to hear all the different ways you can do this. But you're basically poaching the fish, making a white sauce, adding it all together, and then it's like a dip. That's how we use it, and we'll show you how. Or full-on meal. And Marge uses.
We used to have it for dinner a lot in the wintertime, and would just have it on mashed potato, and usually with carrots on the side, and it was just dinner. And so, but it's just so good.
It is so good. I use another spoon. So I'm stirring the butter and the flour together. It's doing exactly what I want it to do. And in about 30 seconds, I'm going to add the cool milk. It's not ice cold. And you'll soon see how quickly it comes together.
I'll get that for you.
Thank you.
Oh, it smells good.
And then I'll let you add the nutmeg to mine when it's up.
There we go.
So if you want to pour it slowly in there.
Sure.
While I am not whisking, but this works fine. Perfect. And in fact, I'm going to use my, go for it.
All right.
And you do have to babysit it at this point, but you'll soon feel it. It thickens up nicely.
Would you like me to chop eggs for you while you're doing that?
Yes. So again, many of the Finnan Haddie recipes, I always add the hard-boiled eggs inside the Finnan Haddie, but some people slice it on top as a decorative piece and then eat it that way.
Oh yeah, I always put it in. Yeah. I think the other thing that's nice about this recipe, I mean, it's a wonderful special occasion recipe, and Finnan Haddie is not certainly the most inexpensive fish to be buying. However, it is, when you add the eggs to it and the cream sauce, and whether it's mashed potato or toast, you're actually getting a lot of servings. So it's not the same as if you were buying a fish fillet that everyone was going to get a half pound or whatever. So I think that makes a big difference in it.
It is a treat at holiday.
Oh, it is a treat.
Yes.
It's a wonderful treat.
And it's still cooking along. I'll leave it get a little warmed up. But you do have to babysit it, or it could scorch, which you don't want.
No.
So we're at a perfect heat, medium low even. And if you can microwave the milk before you add it, so then again it's even closer, but room temp is fine. And I have definitely done it with cold milk from the fridge. So it just extends this step.
I find those are the times when it's like, oh my God, I need to add the milk, and go grab it out of the fridge.
Yeah.
And you put the fish into a chafing dish.
I do.
And so do you do that and then put the sauce over it, or how? What's your process?
So what we can do next, while I'm still doing this, we can definitely chop up the Finnan Haddie.
Okay.
So I can bring it over here and we can just have at it. Because once this bechamel sauce is done, I add the Finnan Haddie and the eggs and stir it up and then move it right into the serving dish.
Okay.
So that's how I do it. Some recipes say you can add mashed potatoes around the rim of the Finnan Haddie as a decorative piece, but Marge uses it as the base sometimes.
Yeah. We all. That's the way we do it.
It's definitely thickening up.
There you go.
So we've almost completed the tradition of my Finnan Haddie.
And my suet pudding that I had growing up. But, traditions get created all the time. And Joe and I created our own tradition when the grandchildren were young. and we're going to hear about it in Joe's way.
I can't wait.
Welcome to Joe's Way. Our family tradition with the grandkids was kind of unique. We went around and asked them all what they wanted for Christmas dinner as being part of their Christmas gift. They gave us a list, and it turned into fried chicken, French fries, or potato chips, and we do crab dip and suet pudding. And then after the meal, then we'd all make gingerbread houses. And this is a representation of that. And it's worked for probably 15 years until the kids grew up and went out on their own. This is a non-traditional tradition. You're welcome to make your own traditions. And that's the Joe Way. Happy holidays.
So we're almost done with the Finnan Haddie. This is what it looks like when you add the cooked fish to the sauce. It really is as simple as stirring it up. You want to do that for me?
I will stir that for you.
And then I'll add the hard-boiled egg, 3 of them. You can add as many as you like or not at all, depending on your preference.
Not at all.
I know.
I don't, yeah, that doesn't seem like a good idea. And what is the final secret ingredient in this?
It is that nutmeg you've got in your hand.
The nutmeg, just
And
like we used
just
on
like
the...
we did on your pudding. And again, it's tough to overdo it with nutmeg. A good sprinkling, like quarter
There you
teaspoon,
go.
half teaspoon. And then this just adds depth of flavor to the sauce, especially if you let it sit a little bit. This is the consistency of Finnan Haddie. And again, you can put it in bowls for dinner, or you can put it in a serving dish, as we're going to do today, for a Christmas buffet. So I'm pulling this forward, and it really is as simple as spooning it into this. And I think I'll use the spoon, ladle. And I also have individual serving dishes in case people don't want to just, gather around the pot. They actually want to grab it and have their own little serving dish of it. And I serve it with toast points, which are over here. You can put it on mashed potatoes. And if you really want to be special and fancy, you can line this dish, after I'm all done putting it in there, with the mashed potato ring, so people can dip both the Finnan Haddie and mashed potatoes when they're diving in. And that's that.
All right.
Yes. I'll finish this up.
So I'm going to either that, or I can work on that, and then you can talk about. I'll talk about my pudding.
We're going to change spots.
Oh, change spots. All right, let's change spots.
I'll finish my traditional dish, and you can show off this beautiful pudding.
So this is my suet pudding, and it is, again, it's similar to a brown bread if you've not had that sort of thing before, and it is absolutely lovely, and it goes with a sauce, and the sauce is butter, eggs, cream, and sugar. How could you possibly go wrong?
And that's called a hard sauce.
It
Yes.
is called a hard sauce. And because that was the teetotaler side of my family, there's no rum in it. Never had rum in it, but maybe we'll try it someday. But the sauce goes over it, and it is an exquisite Christmas dessert. Well, we did it.
We sure did. It looks beautiful.
It does, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. So why don't you serve some of yours, and I'll spoon up mine, and we will get to try it.
So I'm adding a little bit of the Finnan Haddie, mashed potatoes because they're here and
Because
they're
why
delicious.
not?
And a toast point for me and a toast point for you.
Yay.
And we will
I'm
try
going to
it.
slice this amazing pudding.
It really is.
It is, isn't it?
I want to see what it looks like in there.
Yep. And just,
Oh,
again,
yeah.
it looks like brown bread.
It sure does.
And put a spoonful of this amazing sauce. And again, I mean, it's butter, it's eggs, it's cream, it's sugar.
All the things of Christmas.
What could be better?
Right.
I should start over here, though, shouldn't I?
Yeah, let's start with dinner first and then dessert.
All right, dinner first and then dessert.
Or appetizer. Keep going. I know. It is so good. I'm going to just dunk it.
It is
The
so
toast.
good. Yum.
Okay. Now to dessert. I love the
Now
individual
to-
servings because then you can pour as much sauce on as you want.
Yeah. Although it's so rich.
Is it?
Oh, yeah. But it's so good. So, cheers.
Cheers, Marge. Very good.
I have to take a second bite because I'm 6 years old again.
Aw, I'm so glad you made it for us, 6-year-old Marge. Well, cheers to this dinner.
And happy holidays from Nourishing Maine.